The bottom line, the question that we need to answer is, in today's world where there's so many opinions, so many teachings on television, so many tape series, and so many books at all the bookstores and Amazon.com, and in 30,000 different registered denominations in the United States, how do we know what the truth is? Who do we follow? Who do we listen to? Who is right? And how do we make these decisions with limited education? Assuming that all of you watching the video or listening to the CD, all of us here, how many of us know Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, and Aramaic? How many of us know all the church councils? How many of us know all church history? How are we going to determine what is true? This is where Christ's authority comes into the picture when He established His kingdom 2,000 years ago and gave His authority to men to lead and rule His kingdom here on earth. Picking up with the pattern that we find in the Old Testament in the kingdom of David. Every person who goes by the name Christian today, whether Catholic or whether Protestant or non-denominational, has some source of authority on which they determine what is right and what is wrong. Most would contend that the Bible is the source. But the Bible doesn't come with instructions. It doesn't come with instructions, and it doesn't come with a separate group of instructions telling you how to interpret this. Just like the Constitution of the United States doesn't stand on its own, the Constitution of the United States needs people to interpret it and to tell us what is the intent of the Constitution of the United States. Introducing the Papacy, the wonderful gift that God has given us to extend His fathering, His loving fatherhood to us in the church today. In your workbook on page 55, I have cited several texts from the Catechism, and I'm not going to read all of those, but these 4 texts provide really a foundation for the papacy in the church today. Now, when I mention papacy, some people immediately will have kind of a gut reaction of, particularly if they're not Catholic, of, well, the papacy, that's something that the church made up to control people. But I want to show you today that the papacy is rooted in the Old Testament, and it is a continuation of the kingdom of David, and it has particular functions in the office that will benefit every single one of us today. And frankly, I have to tell you, as a former Protestant pastor, I find tremendous comfort and tremendous sense of certitude in my faith today because of the gift of the papacy, what God has given us. Now, this goes back to the Old Testament. In the kingdom of David, back in Samuel, and we find in Kings, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, we see that there is a particular office, and that office is called, in Hebrew, the Al-Bayit. The Al-Bayit is the one who is given authority to be over the household. When you read the Old Testament, you see someone who is over the household. That term is an office. It's like Secretary of State or Secretary of Interior. It's the Al-Bayit. It's the Prime Minister. And the office of the Prime Minister was to be in charge of the kingdom when the king was away. And so the term Al-Bayit, Prime Minister, was indicative of one in charge, and I gave you a couple of notes on page 58. Joseph was over the house of Egypt, over the household. He was the Al-Bayit, number 2 behind the king, in charge, really. Shevna was over the household in Scripture. The king has, in 2 Kings 15, the king has leprosy and cannot rule. Who rules? His son Jotham becomes prime minister, the one who is over the household and has the keys to the kingdom. Eliakim replaced Shevna as the one who was over the household in 2 Kings 18. Now, the prime minister was the main steward of the kingdom, ruling when the king was gone until his return. Now, I can't find it, but I've been Googling lately. For those watching the video, that's a term that maybe you don't use anymore. I don't know. But it's something we use today to try to find information on the internet. And I have been trying to find this picture. I saw it one time, and it's a fantastic picture of the last moment when everything's done on earth, and we're all in heaven, and the last pope, his last bit of business is handing the keys back to Jesus. That when Jesus is gone, he hands the keys to the prime minister who rules the kingdom while he's gone. That doesn't mean he's out of the picture as the Lord, but he has someone ruling here on earth.